Sunday will mark the 8th anniversary of the Marikana Massacre, when 32 miners were killed, shot dead by police officers. 12 people were killed in the run-up to those events. You'll remember the horror of seeing and hearing what had happened in Marikana in 2012. The company that owned the mine at Marikana at the time was Lonmin. It's now sold that mine to Sibanye Steelwater. Its CEO is Neal Froneman. Neal, good afternoon to you. You've written today that for there to be any progress around Marikana in our mining sector generally, people have to acknowledge what happened in the past. What do you mean by that?
Hi, Stephen. The issue is that it's difficult to go forward and develop common goals which are so desperately needed in South Africa if you don't trust the other stakeholder or stakeholders. Now, addressing trust means that, the only recipe I know to deal with trust is by acknowledging what was wrong in the past and making sure that you acknowledge it in the right way, apologize where necessary, and this is not just a one-way pointing of fingers. I think all stakeholders have done things wrong that they should acknowledge and apologize for. And only once that is done can you really start rebuilding. And it's not too different to the truth and reconciliation process that ran. And we can criticize that it may never have run fully or could have been done better. That might be so. But that is the one process we know that addresses trust, and we need to do it.
Is that actually happening?
It's not happening, unfortunately. I've been an advocate of the process for a number of years. We've had a lack of leadership in government at a point in time. Hopefully our current minister will recognize the need for it in terms of taking the mineral sector forward and perhaps even drive it. But it is certainly something that I've been on the public record talking about, the Zambezi Protocol, which was the event that actually recognized the trust issue and came up with a process. So we hope to make it work or happen. But it hasn't happened yet.
In some ways, mining has changed dramatically. In some ways, it hasn't changed in over 100 years. In South Africa, people leave the Eastern Cape or Mozambique or Zimbabwe. They go to Gauteng or the Northwest, and they go underground. They end up living far away from their families. The migrant labor system, as it was called then, still in some cases operating. What's the future of mining? How should that be changed?
Yes, I think that living away from your family is not acceptable, and thinking of labor, as we did in the past, and even referring to labor sending areas is just not on. Looking forward, we really have to source our human capacity, from local communities, because you get a distinct disjoint between your employees if they don't come from the communities, and the communities if you don't do that. And it's part of being able to uplift communities. Of course, we've got to somehow mechanize or automate as much of mining as possible, and in doing that, that will recreate jobs in other sectors as well. But it is difficult in narrow tabular mining, which unfortunately most of our South African resources are. But there does need to be a change, and that's one part of the acknowledgement is the way people were used and abused. I think there are many other legacy issues, such as health issues, and they all need to be acknowledged and dealt with, and we need to make sure they never ever happen again.
Is the position, the life that a miner leads at the mine that you now own in Marikana, is it better than it was in 2012?
I believe it is. The company we acquired, Lonmin, did a lot of work post Marikana. They spent hundreds of millions on housing projects. Yes, we can criticize them for not having done more, but I think it's difficult for us mining companies to do more with the limited resources we have. But also there's a partner that is not stepping up to the plate in terms of government and the provision of services that are so desperately needed and part of upgrading communities as well. So a lot has been done. Can more be done? Absolutely. Is more going to be done? Yes, without a doubt. And we have some really modern and I think let's call it best practices that we've learned across the world that we want to introduce into the way we deal with communities.
We need to talk a little bit about government. I mean, obviously we're emerging from a lockdown, very difficult situation for the mining sector over the last 10, 12, I mean more than that years. The price of production has gone up quite dramatically in the last 25 years in South Africa. It's a big question, Neal. Is there a future for the industry in South Africa?
You know, I have to believe there is. We have such wonderful resources that, you know, as an industry we need to protect. If government's not going to protect it, then the industry has to take it on itself to do that. The industry is trying to be part of the solution. I remain very disappointed with current leadership, and certainly I think there might be a need for a change in leadership for us to get through this. But we have to protect our natural endowment and make sure that it distributes value to all South Africans, all stakeholders, and we will do that as an industry.
When you talk about a change in leadership, are you talking about President Ramaphosa? Are you talking about the Mineral Resources Minister, Gwede Mantashe?
No, I think, you know, I personally believe we have a great minister in the DMRE. I believe that his heart's in the right place. I believe that you know, he really wants to do the right things, and there's ample evidence of that. I'm talking about, you know, leadership in general in the cabinet. I see ministers that are incapable of making a decision. I see ministers that are like rabbits in the headlights. I see ministers that don't acknowledge the crisis that we're in and the rate at which we're going into a debt trap. That is the leadership I'm talking about. You know, there's just a total lack of inaction and capacity within government.
Neal Froneman, thanks very much indeed. The CEO of Sibanye Steelwater, the mining company that bought Marikana, and of course that anniversary, the 8th anniversary, taking place on Sunday.